Hello, I'm VIVAN CHRISTMAN, your host for Spotlight on Education. Today, we're over at Tramway Elementary School, where we'll be talking with Melanie Bowie, who's a second grade teacher in doing some very special things with her students. Good morning, Melanie.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for joining us on the program. It's fun to be here and to see your students working away in the background.
Yes. Hopefully they'll be working hard.
Well, it looked like they were very excited when we came in for the program, but I'm impressed with the discipline that I see in the classroom where the students are, I think you said, working at stations this morning?
Yes, they are. Each morning we do stations for about an hour and 20 minutes, and it gives me a time to work in small groups and for the children to do lots of a variety of activities within that time. Lots of reading and writing and math, and they get to move around, which helps them. They enjoy being able to move around.
I think I would have enjoyed that. My attention span wasn't very long, and that probably helps. Well, let's take a minute, Melanie, and talk about you. We would like our audience to get to know you and as a person and your background. Let's start with your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I grew up here in Lee County, so that's why I have such a fondness for my students. And I was born in Lee County and then moved to Lillington for a few years, and then my parents came back. Both my parents were in education, so that had a big impact on my life. And I went to Greenwood Elementary School and then went to Wesley Junior High, it was then, and then went to Lee Senior. So, you know, it's a great place to go to school, and that's why I felt, it was a special time when I got to come back and teach here in Lee County since I had been a student here.
Well, that's neat that you have such deep roots and an educational background. Let me ask you about your early childhood. Who were your heroes when you were a child?
Well, I was a big swimmer, and I was an avid on the swim team. We swam in the morning and in the afternoon. So a lot of the swimmers in the Olympics and my swim coaches, you know, in any sport, your coach just gives you that drive and that dedication. And I think that having that extracurricular, outlet, that really gave me a lot of motivation, and that carried over into education and into lots of aspects of my life. So I think those coaches and seeing those Olympic swimmers, they were really my heroes, and of course my parents.
Well, it sounds like your parents must have also had a long-lasting impact because of their background in education and now this choice of yours. How did their being involved in education influence you as a child, say, when you were in the grades?
Well, it was such a big part of my life. My dad worked at the community college, and he actually taught at high school level before he went to CCCC. And my mother's always taught, and she was actually at Greenwood School while I was there. And so my life just kind of was surrounded with it. And so when I got, to my career choice later on, it was almost an automatic. But, I did think about other careers, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do till my junior year. But it felt right. And I knew it was the right decision for me, and it has been.
Well, sometimes I think with children, there's a period of time when you idolize your parents and you want to do exactly what they're doing. And then sometimes there can be a later period, maybe more in adolescence, where you want to pull away and kind of be anything but what they are. Did you feel some of those same kind of tuggings?
I didn't ever feel like, no, I would never want to be a teacher. My mother has never told me, no, you don't want to be a teacher. There's some teachers who tell you, please don't go into education. But both my parents always told me to go after my dreams. They never pushed me towards education, but it just felt right. Sometimes you're drawn to a career, and I feel like that's what I was drawn to education.
How about external or extended family members and people like that, influence from folks like that? Were your parents' families from the area as well?
Well, my grandparents were in Harnett County in Lillington, my mom's parents, and my dad's were in the Broadway area, Olivia. So everyone's really close, and they just wanted us to be successful and be happy. And so, any career that all of the grandchildren chose, they just wanted us to be happy and choose something that we enjoy, because, with a career, it's important to do something that you are passionate about.
You're right about that. Let me come back to some of the sports heroes that you had, the coaches and people that had an influence on you. We've heard a lot recently about things like your emotional intelligence. And they say that, one of the things kids in particular pick up, but all of us as human beings, we will pick up the emotions from each other more than anything. And I've thought about this relative to the early heroes that we have. You seem to exude a lot of enthusiasm. Did you see a lot of that with the coaches and sports heroes?
Yes, they're so passionate when you're swimming and when you make a good time, or you beat your best time. It was such a team and a kind of a family. Those swim team experiences had a big impact on my life, just because going to meets and having that camaraderie where everybody's pulling for each other, and feeling that you're a part of something, and that's what the classroom's about too. I want the kids to feel like we're all in this together. It's a team effort, but they have to give me their best and I have to give them my best. And so that's what I try to carry on from the swimming, and seeing Mark Spitz and all these famous, Olympians, and seeing their victories and their gold medals. That was really.
Well, that's neat. Yeah, and a lot of those I have watched the Olympics and followed them, but not, I'm sure, to the extent that you did. But I've always been impressed with the character factor, I guess I would call it, that you see in a lot of those professional athletes.
They're very dedicated. When you are an Olympic swimmer or any Olympic athlete, you have to give so much time, and really, that helps you in your studies, because I have this much time to do my swimming. That means I have this much time to do my homework. This much fun time. It really helps you schedule your time, and I really enjoyed that growing up.
Well, that's neat. Well, we're going to pause for a moment and take a break. Before we do, though, I'd like to remind everyone that Spotlight on Education is sponsored by the Santa Lee Rotary Club. Putting service above self is the Rotary Club's motto. Rotary Club members are committed to improving the communities in which they live. If you're thinking about getting involved in the community and helping to build your community, find a member of the Rotary Club and ask them how you can get involved. We'll be right back with more Spotlight on Education. Welcome back to Spotlight on Education. Today we're at the Tramway Elementary School in Melanie Bowie's second grade class. In the background you may notice some children moving around, and you may even pick up some of the noise as they're working in small groups in what Melanie called stations. And right now it's time for them to change stations. Melanie, maybe you want to say a little bit more about that for our audience.
Well, it does get a little noisy when we're changing, but they'll quickly get on task once they get to their new station. And it is fun for the children to be able to do different activities and not have to stick with one worksheet or one activity for a whole hour. You know, we do lots of different things, and the kids really enjoy it. And it's fun for me, too.
How many minutes do they stay at each one of the stations?
Approximately 20 minutes.
Well, that's long enough. That would certainly cover my attention span. Well, that's neat. And even the noise that, I heard as I observed the changing of stations is more of a noise of, getting their things and moving rather than, horseplay or things like that.
Yeah, it's anticipation. They're ready to move to go to the next station and wanting to do what will be there. They're excited. I change the stations each week, so each week it's something new. So they look forward to that.
That's exciting. That's nice, so they don't get into some sort of boring routine.
Right. That's the most important thing. It's got to be fun for them.
Well, it's obvious in watching today that they're enjoying themselves. Let's go back and talk a little bit more about your career choice and how you ended up here in the classroom. You had mentioned earlier that it was in your junior year in college, I guess, that you made the decision, or before you actually made the decision to make a career in education. Talk to us a little bit more about that decision and, what were the factors that influenced that?
Okay, well, I did go to East Carolina University, and all along my dad was giving me career advice, choose a job, a banker or, a lawyer. Go talk to the person, see, visit. He's one of those who always gave me good advice, not just to pull a career out of the air. Go talk to people, visit them, shadow them. And I went to visit some of the banks and some of the lawyers, and and I had always been around my mother in her classroom. And by my junior year, I wasn't passionate about any of the other careers, and I just felt, I wanted to go into the classroom. And so by my junior year, each time I came home, I was going over to Greenwood and going over into Mom's first grade classroom and visiting some of the kindergartens and fourth grades and fifth grades, just trying to get some exposure. Because with teaching, the best exposure is in the classroom. When you're in college and you're learning the textbook, that's important too, but really being in the classroom and seeing how do you do the discipline. I can tell you how to do it, but my methods might not work for you. And so really you just kind of have to feel your way. And I did a lot of observing. And so I think that it's really important that these high school students and even at the beginning of college, if they're thinking about education, they really need to get out into the field and into the classrooms and visit and do a lot of that observation. And I think the colleges are seeing that, and they're doing longer student teaching. Instead of just one semester, they're expanding that into a year. And that's so important because that's the best experience. And, I had a great student teaching experience in first grade in Greenville. I really enjoyed that. And then, I applied all over Lee County, Harnett County, Moore County, because I was going to move back home. And right away, I got a job, 2 job offers, and I took the one at Edwards Elementary School with Dr. Bowman, which she was my high school principal. So that was really neat that she was my high school principal, and then she was the principal that hired me in a Title I reading position.
It's got to be a real special experience to go back and work with so many of the people that mentored you and taught you in the earlier years.
At the beginning, that first day of orientation, all the teachers come together. I walked in the room. There was my first grade teacher. There was my fourth grade teacher, middle school teachers and high school teachers, and I was now a part of them. It was a really, really special day for me. And instead of calling them Miss So-and-so, they were telling me, well, you can call me by my first name, and that felt too weird. I still had to call them, like they were still my teacher. So that was a really neat experience, that first day going back, as a comrade instead of a student. Neat experience.
Are there some of those now colleagues that have been particularly influential in mentoring you as you've moved into this career?
Yes, many. I've had such wonderful teachers, and I think that's part of what's drawn me to the field. Miss Ruth Gertis was one of my teachers at middle school, my PE teacher, and she just has that enthusiasm about her. You know, she really made a difference. She just gives the extra. You know, about 3 or 4 years ago, she sent me something in the mail that I had written, and that just really made an impact on me. Wow, she had kept this for, 10 or 15 years and saved it to me and sent it. And anytime anything that my class or I do is in the newspaper, she'll always cut it out and clip it and send it to me. And that's just really neat that someone out there is watching what you do and, responding to it. I've had so many good teachers. Rynette Seaman at the high school was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. Too many to name.
It's hard when someone asks that kind of question. Are there some people in particular that you go to now as you struggle with issues, and you may want to try a new idea, or you're struggling with a particular, perhaps a discipline issue with a child? Are there some now that still continue to mentor you that you go to?
Well, when I went to Edwards Elementary School, Phyllis Farron was my first mentor, and she was just a wonderful person that I could go to about anything. And so many other teachers over there, Lisa Fashee, and there were many that actually in Title I, I went into their classrooms and kind of did some team teaching, and so I learned a lot from a lot of different people. It was a wonderful experience for me. I worked with grades kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So that really gave me a good base that I felt like now I know so much about the curriculum and the different grades that I really want to go into the classroom myself. And that kind of led me to going into the classroom because I was in Title I reading for 5 years. So.
5 years, that's quite an experience. And so it was there at Edwards where you were nominated Teacher of the Year, a couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago, I was the Edwards Teacher of the Year, which was a big honor because I hadn't been teaching very long, but, it was wonderful to be selected from my colleagues because we vote on the teachers there at the school site. And then when I was selected as Lee County Teacher of the Year, wow, that was incredible. That was a big honor.
I guess so. Well, that's interesting. And then of course, with the year-round program here at Tramway, just being a year old, this is your first year here. Why did you decide to apply for the year-round program?
Well, I have some friends in other counties that are also on the year-round schedule, and I've always been intrigued with it. The schedule, going 9 weeks and having 3 weeks off, and this year, now that I've done it, it has been wonderful. Having those 3 weeks off, the kids are ready for a break. They're getting antsy and they need some vacation time, but then they're all ready to come back. That first week, this week is our first week back after a break, and they've been wonderful. The parents tell me, they're ready to come back, and so as a teacher, it gives me time with 3 weeks that I can get some cleaning done at my house, those things that you don't want to do, and also maybe go to a trip, went to the beach, but then I also had enough time where I could come over here leisurely and work a couple hours, 2 or 3 days, and get some things done, and it's not all this pressure. When you only have 1 week off, that's not much time to get a lot of things done, and 3 weeks is a good amount of time to get lots of things done.
That's really terrific. We're going to take another short break, and then we want to come back and talk about your goals and dreams and what you're trying to accomplish here in the classroom more specifically. But before we take a break, I want to tell you about another local business that's been a real friend to education, and that's Rainbow's End Card and Gift Shop. They're located on Wicker Street in downtown Sanford, and they have helped us raise money and do other things to support local education. If you're looking for a special gift for a friend or a loved one, stop by and see Margaret or Anil and ask them to show you some of the things that they have there. Well, stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with more Spotlight on Education. Welcome back to Spotlight on Education. I'm VIVAN CHRISTMAN, your host. You're now seeing a picture of Lois Goldston working at a writing station in Melanie Bowie's 2nd grade class. The students are working in separate stations. They change it roughly every 20 minutes so that their attention span doesn't get exhausted and they're able to work on a variety of projects. It's fun watching them. Melanie, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Melanie, as we said just before the break, I'd like to spend our last few moments together talking about your dreams and goals and the things that you're doing here in the classroom to try to reach those. Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, my dreams and goals for these kids is that I have 180 days, and so each day I have to do as much as I can to teach them what they need for third grade, fourth grade. And there's a lot of emphasis on the end of grade tests. We don't give those in second grade, but we do give reading inventories which actually start in first grade. But in the third grade, they start taking these end of grade tests. And so I feel compelled to help these students learn as much as I can now so they can be prepared for third grade, prepared for life. You know, my goal is to give these kids a love of reading, a love of math, a love of learning. You know, we do all different kinds of activities in here. I really try to meet the needs, which is really hard because each child is different and each child learns differently. You know, so you really have to mix things up and do things. If one way you teach works for some, then you've also got to try it another way to help others. And that's one of the challenges, is that, you know, I've got some students who are reading on this level and this level and this level, and with the stations it helps because I can have a small group of readers at the same level and try to push them on. Because with reading, you've really got to find that level where the children are so that you can help them move on. If you just continue to give them books that are too easy for them, you're not pushing them forward. And so what I try to do is push the kids, you know, at a comfortable pace where they can be successful. And that's what I try to do.
What are some of the other things that you employ within your classroom to either capture their interest? I'm impressed in watching you with the enthusiasm that you exude constantly in working with the kids. And is that important, and how do you tie that in?
I think it's very important. You know, they catch my excitement from me. And so I try to be excited about a lot of things, but I'm really passionate about the reading. You know, I was a reading specialist for 5 years, and I love books. And so I try to share that with them. And I can see that coming through with them when I hear them reading with expression the way that I do. You know, that really kind of gets to me because it's so special, you know, that they hear me changing my voice, you know, for different characters, and they take that with them, and that really makes reading fun. A lot of other things I do, we do a lot of singing and a lot of songs about in the content areas. You know, now we're studying about the rainforest, so we're singing a rainforest song. We're making a rainforest out in the hall, you know, and actually at the Writing Center where Miss Golston is, we're writing letters to different organizations asking them for information about different rainforests. So what I really try to do is tie things in, and that helps them learn, you know, in this aspect and different, you know, different things with the writing and the reading and the math and the science. We try to mesh it all together, and that really helps them, you know, take it with them, and it's more meaningful.
That is one of the most fascinating concepts that I've noticed, I guess, from the years when I was in the grades to now, is this sort of comprehensiveness in the subject is rainforest and how you hit it through every aspect of learning. That's exciting.
Really. And it makes a difference, you know. They get passionate about it. Their parents are telling me, oh, they want to go to the library and check out books. When we did dinosaurs, the kids loved that. And we did so many different things. We made fossils, and, you know, they were just, each topic I don't think that they will be as excited about, but each one, it seems like the excitement grows and grows. It's just fun. It's really a lot of fun.
Well, it's exciting to see what you're doing here and to watch the enthusiasm. Probably folks at home can now hear them a little or see them as they change stations again and getting ready for the next subject. Well, it'll be fun to watch these guys. I wish we had more time to talk, but we're out of time today. So let me thank all of you at home for being with us, and come back and join us next week on Spotlight on Education.